What's good, everybody? I hope y'all are having a great day. My name is Solomon Ordell, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about a gambit for white against the Caro-Kann Defense that you probably haven't heard of before. At least I hadn't before my guy, Nick Luciano, one of my Patreon supporters, let me know about this Hector Gambit, a very fun option against the Caro-Kann, and it's pretty sound as well. This isn't one of those gambits that you go down -1, -2, and just hope they fall for a trap. You actually get some really good playable positions, and there's also traps along the way, which doesn't hurt. Now, it's against the Caro-Kann, so we're starting out with this move of pawn to e4, and against the Caro-Kann, we're going with knight c3, and we're now playing the move of knight to f3. Now, this is the two knights attack. I have a course coming out on this on Chessable pretty soon. Me and my guy Russ Southern partnered together, and he put all the lines together. I verified them and presented it, and yeah, I mean, as I film this right now, we're actually finishing up the production for that. But this is such a fun line, guys, the two knights attack. I am not planning on playing anything else for the rest of my life against the Caro-Kann. That's where I'm at with it. I love this for white. I used to hate playing the Caro-Kann. In fact, I've hated the Caro-Kann Defense for like, how old am I now? 26? Like, I can't do math. 18 years, okay? For 18 years, I've hated the Caro-Kann. I just never found anything against it that I really liked. So the two knights attack, though, a lot of fun, a lot of traps, a lot of fun stuff that can go down. And it's a very sound option that you see quite a bit at the Grandmaster level. So this move, knight to f3, is how we get into that. Now, if black takes on e4, very common move, in the course, we're covering knight takes e4. Okay, we're not covering the Hector Gambit in the Chessable course, but today that's what we're covering. Knight to g5. The Hector Gambit, a very fun option for us in terms of, yeah, I mean, playing this position out. Now we're going to be going over the most common responses first, and then we're going to be working our way back. This is a little bit of a switch up from my normal approach of going through the most rare options and then going to the most common. So let me know what you think of this video in terms of how I structured the lines and in the order that I taught them. But we're going to be covering the most important lines first, meaning the lines that you're going to see the most often first, and then we'll work our way backwards. Now, the most common move here in online chess, knight to f6, played a lot. Now, if we see this move, there's different things that we can go with here. Bishop to c4 is something the engine will tell you to play. Taking on e4 is good as well. But why would we play the Hector Gambit? Why would we not take this pawn just to move our knight out and then take the pawn? Sometimes we have to do that, but in this case, why not play d3? Why not? Why not offer this pawn up? And black often takes on d3. This is what we see the most often. When we capture the move we see the most often in online chess, all ratings, all time controls, h6. Blunder. Terrible move for black. Losing because we have knight takes f7. Knight takes f7. Look, your queen is attacked. Your rook is hanging. g6 is a hole. You're losing this. You're dead losing. In fact, the engine move is actually taking the knight, which runs into check. And yeah, I mean, we have a queen. They don't. We are crushing this game. Now, again, with bishop takes d3, the most common move is h6. That's what we see the most often. But not far behind is this move of bishop to g4. Just like with h6, how we played knight takes f7, we're doing the same thing here. Knight takes f7. Now, if black does stake with the king, yet again, bishop to g6 with check. There's a pawn there. Who cares, though? What matters is that we're going for this queen that's unprotected. And if we see this move, let's just say something like queen to d7 or something, the queen moving, well, we can't take the rook because we don't want to drop our queen, but we can play f3. Kick that bishop around. We're now attacking the bishop. We're attacking the rook. If you do see something like queen to e6, you could block with your queen. If you see bishop takes f3, you could capture back. This is over +1 for white. Over +1. And if black takes here, we can capture on g4. Now, sure, black can trade down, but even here, we're over +1. Well over +1. Bishop to f5. We're down a pawn, but we have good activity here. And black has weaknesses. You have an isolated pawn on the e-file, which is making e6 very weak. We're attacking your hanging knight. If you play something like knight back, we have bishop to c8. Our activity is through the roof here. b7 is hanging. And by the way, trying to save that pawn through pushing it, well, okay, you saved the pawn, but there goes your rook. So that's not a great idea. And if black takes on d1, which is what they should do, that's the best move for them to take the queen, we'll take their queen. You want to take on d8, we'll capture back. I think the move that feels a little bit more challenging for me is this move bishop takes c2. I would probably play this if I were black, just trying to get something for my bishop and then take the knight on d8. And this is interesting, right? We're playing a gambit. We're in the endgame and we're down a pawn. But the engine still says we're better. Bishop to f4. We could, let's just say we see something like knight bd7 or whatever. We can castle queenside, centralize our other rook. And as you can see here, a lot of activity. Sure, black has an extra pawn, but what are their rooks doing? Absolutely nothing. Their rooks are atrocious. Our rooks extremely active and doing quite a bit in this kind of game. And this is one of those spots where if you're playing this from black, sure, you're up a pawn, but it just doesn't, at least to me, it just don't feel comfortable. So, yeah, I mean, I personally would rather have white in that kind of position. And of course, I'm also saying that because I know Stockfish says that white is better, but there you go. Stepping back to knight takes f7. Again, if the king takes, we have a check on g6. If you take our queen, we'll take yours. We play from there. What else could we see here? Well, let's step back to this move of bishop takes d3. If we see the move of e6, this is also common, right? Again, h6 and bishop g4 against either one of those, knight takes f7 is the way to go. Got to do that. But against e6, this doesn't work. That doesn't work because if the king captures, we throw in a check. There's actually a lot of online players that don't even find this move, but black can play king to e7. They're winning. We sacrifice material, and for what? To get a queen trade? That just doesn't work. So with pawn to e6, queen to f3 is a move that I kind of like, and I see queen f3 coming up again and again. As you're going to see, queen f3 is a common idea in the Hector Gambit. And I like this move. I think it does a good job of helping us get to the queen side. I like castling queen side in these types of positions. The most common move in online chess, bishop to e7. I like bishop f4. Black often castles. All right, we'll castle queen side. And as you can see here, we have great development, great activity. We're down a pawn, but we have a fun game of chess. And when you're playing in those kind of, shorter time controls, blitz, bullet, this can be a really fun option. Even if you're beginner or intermediate, you could try this in an over-the-board tournament, but I would probably caution you not to. This is more of an online opening to play. But even then, I mean, if you play sound chess from the start of it, you are okay. So anyways, with castling queenside, if we do see something like queen to a5, there's different moves you got here. Centralizing this rook's one of them. Queen to h3 is something you can think about. Maybe getting this knight into the action according to the computer. King b1 is the move that I like. Stockfish likes this. And I think that this shows a lot of chess maturity, playing king to b1. And this is what we call prophylactic chess. Black wasn't threatening anything. They weren't threatening the pawn on a2. But if we ever thought about moving this knight, we would have to start calculating what if queen takes a2. There's nothing checking our king right now, but in the future, something might. Well, when we play king to b1, we're no longer worried about a2 at all, and we're no longer worried about this long diagonal. That's why you'll see a lot of GMs castle queenside and then move their king over one more. Chess at the highest levels isn't usually a game where pieces are flying everywhere and every single move you might get checkmated. Against good players, usually the game of chess is a slow grind. Maybe you're attacking, maybe it's a more positional prowess kind of thing, but against a good player, you're just not going to wipe them off the board in 10 moves most of the time. But playing a move like king b1 there puts you in a good spot to continue activating your pieces, continue putting pressure on your opponent until you can make a breakthrough happen. I quickly wanted to mention that I am giving out private chess lessons for those of you interested in taking your game to the next level. Chess is a hard game. There's a lot of different areas. I've had students want to work on something specific. Players reaching out going, hey, I want to work on the hippopotamus defense. I want to get better at the hippo. I've had students go, hey, I want to work on the endgame, calculation, tactics, whatever it may be. I've had other students that go, hey, I actually don't really know what I need to work on, but I'm just trying to improve. I want to hit this certain ELO range or this certain title or whatever it may be. And chess is a very fun game. It does take a lot of work and a lot of focus. I love to work with students to assess their strengths and weaknesses and look to turn those weaknesses into strengths, as well as give them a curriculum, in which case they can work on and work with to improve their game as a whole. If you are interested in private lessons, make sure to check out the description below. You can reach out there, and there's no strings attached. There's no strings attached if you want to reach out and just talk about, if this is something that would be beneficial for you or not. And if you do decide to get lessons, I look forward to hanging out and, just chopping up some chess with you and helping you improve your game. Let's now return to the spot where we played the move of pawn to d3, offering up a second pawn there. Now, this position, we covered what happens if black takes. That's what we see the most often. But what else could we see here? Well, we could see this move of bishop f5. This is the second most common option. I don't think it's that good of a move, though. I mean, it really just gives us an equal type of game. I mean, if you go to Stockfish, maybe it's going to tell you black has a minuscule advantage, but who cares? This is really a drawish position if both sides play well. And at this point, there's really no tricks that we can pull out. It's probably best to bring your G knight and capture on e4. And if the knight wants to take, you have a couple of options here. For example, right, you could take with the pawn. That's fine. If you do take with the pawn, you'll run into queen takes d1 probably. You don't want to take with the knight because the bishop wins the pawn. And if you take with the king, their king can castle, your king can't. Technically here, it doesn't really matter. Queens aren't on the board and hardly anything else is. And most importantly, black's development is just non-existent. They only got one piece out. So it's not like our king is in major trouble or anything like that at all. But yeah, I mean, this isn't the most comfortable position necessarily. So I personally like taking with the knight. And hey, if you don't want to take, don't take. That's cool. We're good with that. And if you do take, now when you capture, we don't have our knight on c3 anymore. So we can play c3 and king to c2, very nicely tucking that king. So I personally would rather not have my knight on c3 and a bishop on f5. I would rather those get traded off and then take, and have this ability to go 1, 2. And the engine here says that white is better. We do have the bishop pair. And yeah, just a comfortable position. No major weaknesses for either side. With d3, what about bishop g4? This is the third most common. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Against this, got to go with queen d2. Got to play queen d2 there. And black often takes on d3. And by the way, if they don't, they're not going to maintain much of an advantage. I mean, we're going to be able to win this pawn on e4. We have 1, 2, 3 attacking pieces on it. If you as black want to maximize your advantage, you got to take on d3 here. And then we capture back, but this is still a very hard position for black to navigate. A lot of players can still fall for this h6 move. You see that move? Well, okay, we take on f7. We have the same exact idea as we've covered previously. And if we see e6, we can play f3, kick that bishop back. I like queen to e2, allowing this bishop to develop. And again, we're looking to castle queenside quickly. Let's say we do see a move here like pawn to h6. That's a mistake. We're better now because we play knight to h3. Now, I know that it seems like this knight is not active, and right now it's not. But very quickly here, we could start looking towards knight to f4, attacking the bishop, or g4, attacking the bishop. And notice, now that h6 is pushed, when the bishop goes back, only the pawn on f7 would be defending it. There's no h7 pawn there. So this bishop is really relying on that pawn on f7, but so is the pawn on e6. So this pawn on f7 can become overworked in that kind of spot. So black needs to be careful about this. Want to be careful in that kind of thing. Now with bishop takes d3, if we see e6 here, right, again, we can play f3, play queen to e2, and if we see knight to be d7, g4. Kick the bishop back. Now in this case, okay, there is an h-pawn, but we can still capture, play a move like bishop to d2, keep that knight solid, castle queenside. Black is better here. We're playing a gambit. Black is better, but they're not winning. They're not winning this position, and there's still a lot of play left. I think castling queenside, f4, f5 is something that we should really think about, really trying to mess up that pawn structure. And this knight on g5, it's going to be hard to kick it out. You can't kick it out with a pawn right now unless you play f6 at some point, but as we all know, you don't want to push the f-pawn in the opening most of the time. I'm actually about to go against what I just said later on, but okay. Bishop to d2. You can go from there. And with d3, if you see h6, you can take on e4, and if black wants to take, right, you can capture with the knight or with the pawn. And in this case, I don't mind this position because I can take with the knight, play f3, develop naturally from this kind of spot. Maybe even knight e3, and I have some key light square spots. Let's now return to our original knight g5 position. Knight g5, okay? Again, e4, we see the Caro-Kann. We're going into the two knights. You take our pawn, knight to g5, we go from here. With knight to f6, I'm recommending d3. Black's either going to give that pawn back or they're going to take, which allows your bishop to capture back and get a lot of activity. What if we see the move of bishop to f5? Well, here, you could take on e4. But again, why would we play the Hector Gambit if we're just going to dance around and then take when we could have captured right away? So I like the move d3. d3. We got 3 attackers on it. If you want to try to hang on to this guy, we're just going to win it. We're going to take the pawn, and we're at even material in a very drawish kind of game. And if black does take, we have queen to f3. Queen to f3. Now, real quickly, let's just cover the most common line that we could see in this position. The most common move is bishop to g6. We now play h4. We're better already. We're threatening to trap that bishop. If h6, we play h5. Most common move. Most common move for black is taking the knight. We take on g6. Most common move for black, taking our rook. But now we capture on f7. You could take on d3, trade off queens, and then promote, or promote into a second queen. Either one's fine. You have 2 queens. They only have 1. This is not good for black. So, by the way, not a lot of opening theory where we have 2 queens coming out of the 11th move. So that's kind of fun. But with queen to f3. Again, bishop to g6, it's the most common move, but it's just bad. Bishop g6, we play the move of f4. All right, we're going to cover that a little bit more in depth, this move of e6, which is really the only move that black has to give them any type of advantage. But let's look at this move of h takes g6 real quick, right? This position. Again, how do we get here? Queen to f3, and we continued like so. What if black goes, you know what? Okay, I realize I can't take the rook because, well, I'm giving my opponent another queen. If I take on g6, I have triple isolated pawns and I lose my rook, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to try knight to h6. Well, here we sacrifice the rook on h6, and whether the pawn or the rook takes, we'll go with rook takes since that's the engine move. We play queen takes f7. We can play bishop takes g5. And we're down the exchange here, but this is completely lost for black. Completely lost. We're already attacking this rook. And really what black should do is just maybe play queen to e8, try to trade down. Of course, if we see that, we're not trading there. We want to attack here. But let's just say the rook does save itself. Well, we have castling queenside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces developed to 1. And this is not a good one. Terrible. Going back to h5, going back to this key position. What if black goes, okay, well, I can't take the knight because my bishop, I'm going to try bishop h7. Well, if you play that, we're going after f7 directly. If you play bishop to f5, we don't want to take this bishop and then lose our knight. Let's get something for the knight first, f7, and then take on f5. And that's not as much a material thing because, sure, you could take on f5 and then capture on g5 after, but taking on f7, I would much rather get rid of the f7 pawn than the h pawn. And if the king captures, we take. I mean, black's light squares are tremendously weak. If you block, we can throw in a check. We can take on d3. Goodness, this is bad for them. And with queen to f3, if black finds the one move, the only move that gives them a slight advantage, knight takes f7. Guys, the Hector Gambit is so much fun. I'm going to start playing it a little bit in online chess, and let me know if you want to see some content on that. I'm planning on starting live streaming late this summer, doing Titled Tuesday and that kind of thing. And yeah, if you guys have any ideas, a lot of you guys have been asking for a Hippo speed run. Thing is, for that, I need to get chess.com's approval for a speed run account. You're not allowed to speed run without one of those, so I have to get that, which is a process. But yeah, I'm looking forward to live streaming and eventually, hopefully doing a Hippo speed run as well. Let me know what other kind of live streaming content you'd want to see, though. If the king takes, which is black's only move that gives them a slight advantage, although really it's just dead even. I mean, your queen's attacked and your rook's attacked. If you take, we have g4. What a fun game. What a fun position. I mean, there's so much stuff that can happen here. We're looking to take this bishop. You can't save the bishop. You can't do it. The bishop's done. And, there's a lot of things that we can see, but our general game plan, take the bishop. We're looking towards bishop takes d3, develop your pieces rapidly. Your opponent has a king on f7. and just play fun, aggressive attacking chess. Don't trade down when you're down material, right? You only want to trade when you're up material. But let's just cover what black usually does. Well, black usually takes on c2. I understand the logic behind this, because one might be thinking, well, I don't want the bishop to take and be super active on this diagonal. By the way, that was an accident. Bishops don't move like that. But yeah, I don't want my opponent's bishop to be super active, so I'm going to take the pawn. Well, the more you take pawns, the less time you have. The more time your opponent has to develop pieces, to attack, to play aggressively. We could take on f5. Black often takes. We can throw in a check. Black goes to e8. Finally, they played a good move. Queen takes f5. And if knight f6, let's castle. Look, I know that our king is on a semi-open file, but if you look at black's development, they only have one piece developed, and their king is in the center. Even if the king was allowed to castle, g8 is covered, so the king couldn't castle that way, or to the queen side either because of our queen on f5. But on top of that, the king has already moved. Rook to e1 is probably going to be our next move here. Going after that king, you can develop quickly, put pressure on your opponent, and gosh, just a really fun game for us overall. Now, stepping back to the move of knight g5. Again, if you see bishop to f5, you can play d3, and if black takes, queen to f3. Beautiful stuff. What if we see this move of h6? Well, this is one of the more boring moves. We're just going to take, though. And we do have an advantage here. We have two pieces developed. Black doesn't have any. Now, of course, they could play knight to f6. You could take that knight. You could play bishop to c4. You could even just play d4. And if black takes, you capture back. And anyone walking by this probably just thinks that you're playing a regular kind of Caro-Kann. They're probably not suspecting that you played a Hector Gambit. It looks like a pretty regular position in a lot of ways. Of course, these knights are missing, which is not common at all. But yeah, I mean, this looks like a very common type of Caro-Kann position. If you do see bishop to f5 instead of knight f6, there's different things that you could do. You could play knight to g3. You could advance in the center. You could play queen to f3 there. You could play queen to e2. I mean, there's a lot of options. If the bishop takes, I like knight captures back. And this move might look concerning, pawn to e5, like, oh gosh, black's taking all this space. But that just gives us a bishop that's active without anything in its way. What's going to get in the way of that bishop? The queen? I mean, come on. You can't put a pawn back on e6. So this is a lot of pressure that black's probably not super happy about. Stepping back to knight g5. What if we see f5? This is the next most common option. Well, again, bishop c4, and our bishop's just very active in that kind of spot. Now, if e6 is played here, we do have two attackers. You only have one defender. So we could take on e6, but the engine likes d3. Playing d3, attacking that pawn, defending our knight, right? Look, we're attacking two pawns here. The pawn on e4 and the pawn on e6 as well. And if you take on d3, we can castle. Look, allow black to keep taking. The more they capture back, the more development you get. You're down two pawns, but you have 6 pieces developed. Black has 0. And they have a pawn on e6 that is horrendous. The swift development that we're going to get in a position like this is through the roof. We're nearly +5 right now. Nearly +5. And if we see this move of knight h6, which is what black should play, by the way, you got to do something there because we are looking at f7 with our knight and our bishop. If you do play knight h6, I like d3. I like that idea, playing d3. If black wants to take, we'll castle. If black continues wanting to capture back, that only hurts their game. That gives us more development. Each move you make, we're developing. We castled. Now our queen's getting out. Now we have rook to e1 stuff that we can look at. Bishop to f4. We can centralize our other rook as well. Black simply losing this. And to finish this out, let's flip the board for a second. If you are a Caro-Kann Defense player, what should you do against the Hector Gambit? Well, it's very similar to my approach against the Tennyson Gambit. For any of you who have invested in my over 11-hour course on the Scandinavian defense, or if you've seen my video on how to play against the Tennyson Gambit as black, you may remember that against this whole Tennyson Gambit idea of the knight coming out to f3 and playing knight g5, I like playing e5 there. And that's what the engine likes here. Pawn to e5. Going, you know what? Take the pawn. Right? If you take the pawn there, we are actually going to push the f-pawn. We can push it. We're not worried about check because we have g6. You move the knight, there's different things that we could do there, including bishop to e6, which prevents the bishop on f1 from coming to c4. That's very important. You don't want to play knight to f6 here and then have a bishop on c4 that's going to annoy you forever. Don't let that bishop get to that spot. Bishop e6, play from here. Right? You have very nice development, knight d7. You could throw out this knight to f6 as well. The queen has a lot of options in terms of where it wants to go, as well as the dark squared bishop. And really, we have two pawns here side by side, wiping out half of the fourth rank. We have great control of d4 right now. I mean, white just can't get rid of these guys right now, unless you want to give it material. If you play d4, which surprisingly is the engine move, we have queen takes d4. And we have an edge there's black. So this is a really nice position for us. And if your opponent plays d3, which a Hector Gambit player probably would play this, well, we're not going to take. Now, sure, technically it's okay if you take. I personally just don't like doing that in these kind of positions. So I'd probably just play bishop to e7. Just allow white to take whenever they want to. If they take with the pawn, well, now they just hung a knight, so thanks for that. And if they capture with the knight, again, you have f5, and you play from here. Hope you guys found the Hector Gambit interesting. Let me know what you thought of it down below. Let me know if you want to see more Hector Gambit content. I know that the Caro-Kann Defense it's annoying. I mean, for a lot of players don't even play e4 because of the Caro-Kann. I often hear, I hate the Caro-Kann, and I hate the French, and I hate the Sicilian, which is, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could see as an e4 player. I will say for myself, I have in my career, or whatever you want to call it as a chess player, I have found stuff that I like against the Scandinavian. I have found stuff that I like against e5. I like the Ponziani there. I like stuff against the Sicilian, like the delayed wing gambit. That's a really fun one. Against the Caro-Kann, until the two knights attack, I just, you know, there's different stuff that's solid and strong and stuff that I'd play, and it was okay, but I didn't love it, right? But the two knights attack, such an aggressive, fun attacking system, and on top of that, when you want to, you can go into the Hector Gambit. You're only down about minus 0.2 in terms of the eval, and the Hector Gambit performs extremely well in online chess. Shout out again to Nick Luciano for sharing this gambit with me, and I'll see y'all in the next video. To finish out, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community, specifically Walter, Rob, Steve, Rob, Ray, and Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for your support. If you haven't checked out the Patreon already, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.